My name is Ren Calloway. I'm 31 years old, and I've been married to my husband for 6 years. Last month, we threw a small birthday party for our daughter's first year of life. The kind of party you spend weeks planning because you want everything to feel warm and right and full of love. And it was, for about the first hour. Then my husband's older sister stood up in front of everyone, held up her phone, and told the room I had been secretly talking to another man behind my husband's back. The whole room went quiet. My mother-in-law set down her drink. My husband looked at me the way you look at someone you suddenly don't recognize. But I didn't panic. I didn't cry. I just looked at her and asked if we could pull up those messages on the TV so everyone could see them properly. Because I already knew exactly what she had done, and I'd been waiting for her to do it. Let me tell you how we got there. My daughter Lily turned 1 on a Saturday in April. We had the party at our house. Nothing extravagant, streamers in yellow and white, a small smash cake with a single candle, family and a handful of close friends filling our living room. I'd spent the whole morning blowing up balloons and setting up the little photo banner I made with pictures from her first 12 months. By noon, everything looked exactly the way I had imagined it. My husband Ben was in the backyard with his dad setting up extra chairs. Lily was in her bouncer near the kitchen, completely unaware it was her party, already trying to eat a balloon ribbon. And then his sister Mara arrived. She came in carrying a gift wrapped in silver paper, smiled at everyone, kissed Lily on the forehead, and found a seat near the window. She was pleasant. She made small talk. She complimented the decorations. But she looked at me the way she always did, like she was waiting for something. I have to be honest with you. Mara and I have never gotten along. From the very beginning, she made it clear in small, careful ways that she didn't think I was right for her brother, not in a loud way. Mara was never loud. She was the kind of person who said things with a smile on her face, so that if you ever called her out on it, she could say you were being too sensitive. You're so lucky. Ben is so patient. I always tell him he needs someone easygoing. It must be nice not worrying about a career right now with a new baby. Ben is so generous. Some men aren't like that, you know. Every comment landed exactly where she meant it to. I stopped bringing them up to Ben after the first year because every time I did, he'd sigh and say that was just how she was, that she didn't mean anything by it. Maybe he was right. Or maybe we both found it easier to believe that than to deal with what it actually meant. But that day at Lily's party, something felt different. About 40 minutes in, I noticed Mara whispering to Ben's aunt near the window. They both glanced at me. The aunt looked uncomfortable and quickly looked away. My stomach turned a little, the way it does when you sense something before you can name it. I went to the kitchen to refill the juice pitcher and told myself I was being paranoid. It was my daughter's birthday. Nothing was going to ruin it. I should have trusted my stomach. We were just about to sing happy birthday when Mara stood up. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't make a scene, not the kind of scene you'd recognize as one right away. She just said, in that calm, deliberate way of hers, that she wanted to say something before the cake. She said she'd been carrying something heavy for a while, and she thought people deserved to know the truth. Ben frowned and told her the timing wasn't great. She looked at him with soft eyes and said she was sorry, but she was doing this for him. Then she held up her phone. She said she had found messages, that she had accidentally seen something she wished she hadn't, that she had spent weeks going back and forth about whether to say anything. She looked genuinely pained about it, which I'll give her this. She was a good actress. She turned the screen toward the room. A conversation. My name at the top. Messages back and forth with someone she identified as a man I worked with 2 years ago. The messages were warm. Too warm. Flirty in a way that, if you didn't know the full story, would look very bad. The room didn't explode. It got quiet in that particular way that feels worse than noise. Ben's mom set her hand over her heart. 2 of our friends leaned in to look at the screen. Ben went completely still beside me. He turned and said my name in a voice I had never heard from him before. I looked at the messages. I looked at Mara. She was watching me carefully, the way a person watches when they want to see exactly how much damage they've done. And I felt something settle in my chest. A kind of stillness. Because those messages didn't surprise me at all. 3 weeks earlier, I had gotten a notification on my phone. A security alert from my email provider saying someone had attempted to access my account from an unfamiliar device. I almost ignored it. I get occasional spam alerts, most people do, but something made me open it. The alert included a location, a device type. I sat with it for a few minutes, and then I did what anyone who's ever felt vaguely followed does. I started digging. I called a friend of mine, Theo, who works in IT security. We went to school together, and he's the kind of person who can trace a login attempt back to a specific machine if you give him the right information. I sent him what I had. 3 days later, he sent me a report. The attempted login had come from a laptop registered to a home address. Mara's home address. I sat with that information for 2 weeks. I didn't tell Ben. I didn't confront Mara. I wasn't sure what she was planning to do with access to my accounts, and I wanted to find out before I said anything. I made copies of the security report. I saved everything to a folder I kept on my own laptop, and then I waited. So when Mara stood up at my daughter's birthday party with messages on her phone, I wasn't panicking. I was watching the shape of what she had planned finally come into full view. Ben said my name again. A few people were murmuring. Mara tilted her phone toward his aunt again. I took a slow breath. I looked at Ben first, then at Mara. I said, very calmly, "That's interesting. Would you be willing to put those on the TV so everyone can see them clearly?" Mara blinked. Someone near the back said, "Yeah, the screen is pretty small." Mara looked at me like she was trying to figure out what I knew. Then she shrugged and said, "Of course, if that's what I wanted." She seemed confident. She should have been. From the outside, those messages looked real. Ben connected her phone to the television. The screen filled with the conversation. People leaned in. A few of Ben's relatives read quietly. His mom let out a soft sound. I stood in the middle of the room and waited until everyone had a moment to look. Then I walked to the small desk in the corner of the living room, the one I had deliberately left my laptop on that morning, and I opened it. I said, "Before anyone says anything, I just want to show you one thing." Mara crossed her arms. She looked amused in the way people look when they think they've already won. I pulled up the security report Theo had sent me and connected my laptop to the television. The screen changed. The messages disappeared, replaced by a plain document. Timestamps, IP addresses, device information, the kind of report that looks completely unremarkable until you read what it actually says. I clicked to the second page and said, quietly, "This is a report from an IT security company. 3 weeks ago, someone tried to access my email and personal accounts from an outside device." The room was very still. "The report identifies the device," I continued. "It identifies the location." I scrolled down slowly. The address was right there on the screen. Mara's street. Mara's zip code. Ben leaned forward and read it. His jaw tightened. Mara's voice came out sharp and fast. That doesn't mean anything. You can spoof a location. Anyone can do that." A few people looked at her. Ben didn't. "You're right," I said. "A location alone doesn't prove much." I moved to the next page of the report. But this is where it gets specific. The device that attempted to access my accounts was the same device used to create and send those messages on your phone. The room broke into sound all at once. Not shouting, more like everyone exhaling at the same moment and then starting to talk at the same time. Mara laughed. It was too loud and too sudden, the kind of laugh that doesn't have any humor in it. "You're making this up," she said. "She made that document herself. You can see what she's doing, she's deflecting." "The report has a case number," I said. "You can call the company and verify it." Ben's dad reached over and took the laptop from the desk and read it carefully. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned and looked at his daughter. Ben turned too. He said her name, and nothing after it for a few seconds. Just her name, in a voice that was very quiet and very tired. Mara started to say something about how she was just trying to protect him, that she'd been worried about me for years, that she had seen signs before this and nobody listened to her. Ben shook his head slowly. "What signs, Mara? What are you actually talking about?" "She's not right for you," Mara said, and her voice broke a little on the last word. "She's never been right for you. You changed when you married her. You don't spend time with the family the way you used to because you make her feel unwelcome every time we come over." His voice wasn't raised, but there was nothing gentle about it either. Mara opened her mouth, then closed it. And then, because she wasn't finished, because she had more to lose than anyone in the room yet understood, she made the mistake of pushing further. She said that I had been hiding things, that the messages weren't the only thing, that she had found out other things about me that she hadn't even brought up yet. The room got very quiet again. I looked at her. "What things?" She hesitated for just a half second, long enough. I said, "Because if you're going to say what I think you're going to say, I'd rather just show everyone now." Mara went still. "Here's the part I haven't told you yet. When Theo was going through the security report, he found something else. The device that had attempted to access my accounts had also been used to access files stored in a shared cloud folder that Ben and I used for household finances, bills, tax documents, records from the small rental property we co-owned with his parents. Theo found evidence that several files had been downloaded and, in 2 cases, modified, changed, numbers adjusted on records that tracked income from the rental property. I had gone through those files carefully after Theo flagged them. The modifications were small, the kind of thing you wouldn't catch unless you were looking, but they added up to roughly $30,000 in rental income that had been redirected over the course of 2 years, redirected into an account I didn't recognize. I had spent a week tracing that account. With Theo's help and then with the help of an accountant friend of ours, we were able to confirm that the account was connected to Mara. I had a second document on my laptop. I had been hoping I wouldn't need to use it that day, but she pushed. I went back to the laptop and opened the second file. "This is a financial audit," I said. "Our accountant completed it 2 weeks ago." Mara said my name like a warning. I kept going. "It covers the last 2 years of income records from the rental property that belongs to Ben, his parents, and me." I pulled up the summary page. It shows that over that time, approximately $30,000 was redirected from the rental income account into a separate account. I looked at Mara. "Would you like to tell everyone whose name is on that account?" The color left her face completely. Ben's dad stood up from his chair. His mom said very softly, "What is she saying, Mara?" The room had gone the kind of quiet that doesn't feel like quiet at all. "It feels like pressure." Mara shook her head. Then she said it wasn't what it looked like. Then she said she had been borrowing it, that she was going to pay it back, that things had been hard for her financially and she hadn't known how to ask. Ben's dad walked toward the television and read the screen carefully. His hands were at his sides and he didn't say anything for a long time. Mara looked at him. "Dad, I don't," he said. Just that one word. Ben had been standing completely still for the last several minutes. Now he walked to the corner of the room and sat down on the arm of the couch, and he put his head in his hands for just a moment. Then he looked up at his sister. "So you stole from Mom and Dad," he said. "You stole from us. And when Ren figured it out, you decided to destroy her marriage before she could say anything." Mara's eyes were wet. "I was scared," she said. "I didn't know what she was going to do. I thought if I could make you not trust her." "Stop." He said it quietly, but she stopped. The room stayed quiet. No one went to comfort her. Ben's aunt, the one she had been whispering to earlier, had moved to the far side of the room and was looking at the floor. Finally, one of our friends, a woman named Deb, who I've known since college, cleared her throat from the doorway and said very gently, "Should I take Lily outside for a few minutes?" I had almost forgotten that my daughter was still in her bouncer near the kitchen, watching the room with wide eyes and chewing on a plastic ring, blissfully unaware of any of it. I said yes. "Thank you." Deb scooped her up and carried her to the backyard, and the small sound of the back door closing was the only thing that broke the silence. Ben's dad asked Mara to leave. He didn't raise his voice. He said he needed time, that they would talk later, but that she needed to go now. She picked up her purse from the floor by the window. She looked once at Ben, who didn't look back at her. Then she walked to the door and left. When the door closed, Ben's mom sat down heavily and pressed both hands over her eyes. A few guests quietly made their way to the kitchen or backyard to give us space. Ben's dad stood at the window for a moment, then went to sit beside his wife. Ben came over to me. He didn't say anything right away. He just stood there, and then he put his arms around me, and I felt all the tension I had been carrying for the last 3 weeks finally released somewhere in my chest. He said, "How long have you known?" I told him 3 weeks. He asked why I hadn't told him sooner. I said I wasn't sure what I had yet, and I needed to be certain before I said anything. I didn't want to accuse his sister of something I couldn't prove. I knew how much he loved her. I didn't want to be wrong. He held on to me a little tighter and didn't say anything for a moment. Then he said, "I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." I told him he didn't need to apologize. He said he wanted to anyway. Deb came back inside with Lily a few minutes later. Lily had a streak of something on her cheek that looked like it might have been grass, and she was grinning the way babies grin when they have absolutely no idea what's going on and are having a wonderful time regardless. Deb set her in my arms and said, quietly, "You okay?" I said I thought I was going to be. She squeezed my shoulder. Then she said, "Can we do the cake now? Because that little girl has been waiting very patiently, and frankly, so have I." Someone laughed. A real laugh, soft and tired, but real. Ben lit the candle. We sang. Lily stared at the flame with the kind of complete focus only a 1-year-old can have, and when we leaned in close and blew it out for her, she laughed out loud. This big, surprised sound. And the whole room laughed with her. It wasn't the party I had planned, but we still had cake, and our daughter had no idea anything had happened, which somehow made it feel like the most important thing in a room. 3 weeks after the party, Ben's parents filed a formal report. The accountant's documentation was turned over to their attorney. The investigation is ongoing. Mara has not reached out to Ben directly, though she sent a long message to his mom which, from what I understand, was more about explaining her reasons than taking responsibility for what she had done. Ben and I talked about it for a long time. We talked about the years of comments I had brushed off. We talked about how I had gotten used to feeling like I had to justify my place in his family. He said things he should have said years ago, and I believed him when he said them. We're okay. Better than okay, actually, in the way that things sometimes are after something breaks open. You see each other more clearly than you did before. Lily is 14 months now. She's pulling herself up on the furniture and very proud of it. Last week, she took 2 steps on her own and then sat down hard on the floor and looked at her own feet like they had personally betrayed her. The world is still making sense to her piece by piece. I think that's true for all of us, if we're honest. We're all just figuring out who we can trust, one piece at a time. I've thought a lot about why Mara did what she did, not in an angry way anymore, more like the way you turn something over in your hand, trying to understand the shape of it. She didn't hate me for no reason. She hated what my presence meant, that her brother had built a life that didn't center around her anymore. That's a real loss, even if the way she responded to it was completely wrong. I think people cause the most damage when they're acting out of fear and refusing to admit it, even to themselves. Mara was afraid of being left behind, and instead of saying that out loud to someone who could have helped her, she made me the problem. She spent years chipping away at my confidence, my place in the family, my relationship with Ben, and when she realized I had quietly found out what she'd actually done, she panicked and went on the offensive. That's the part that still gets me. She had a choice every step of the way. She could have come to Ben and said she was struggling financially. She could have asked for help. She could have found a way back in without burning everything down. But she chose the other direction. And the thing about choices like that is they tend to carry their own consequences. I don't think I did anything particularly brave. I want to be honest about that. What I did was stay calm long enough to be prepared. That's it. There were weeks where I was genuinely scared. Scared I was wrong. Scared no one would believe me. Scared that even with proof, it would somehow still come apart. The night of the party, when the room went quiet and Ben said my name in that unfamiliar voice, my heart was going fast. I wasn't as composed as I probably looked. I was just choosing in that moment not to react before I was ready. I think that's something worth sitting with. Not every battle needs to be fought the second it's picked. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is wait until you actually know what you're dealing with. That takes a kind of discipline that doesn't always feel natural, especially when someone is coming after something you love. But I've learned through this, through Lily watching me from her bouncer that day, through Ben holding my hand after everyone left, that clarity is almost always worth the time it takes to find it. Mara's situation is being handled through proper legal channels now. That's not something I feel good about exactly. It's just the natural end of a chain she started herself. $30,000, 2 years of redirected income, and a plan to destroy her brother's marriage to keep it hidden. The consequences of that aren't something I invented. They were always waiting at the end of the road she'd chose. What I do feel good about is Lily, who has no idea any of it happened, taking 2 unsteady steps across the living room floor and sitting down hard and laughing. The world is still entirely new to her. She doesn't know yet that people you love can sometimes choose the worst version of themselves. She'll learn, eventually, the way we all do. I just hope that when she does, she sees in me someone who stayed honest, stayed patient, and didn't let someone else's fear turn her into something smaller than she was. That's the only thing I'm really trying to pass on.